Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Marvel United Spider-Geddon Part 2. If you didn't check out Part 1 for whatever reason, you can go ahead and check that out. We go through all of the different heroes, which there are 6 core heroes in the set. Scarlet Spider, Penny Parker, Spider-Punk, Silk, Symbiote Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Noir, as well as we look at the hero versions of Anti-Venom and Superior Spider-Man. So in this video, we're going to go through the 4 villains, Morlun and Spot, as well as the villain versions of Anti-Venom and Superior Spider-Man. As well, including that, we will also go over the super villain mode, where someone can play as the villain, which is a really fun mode, as well as solo commander mode. And look at the special cards for that. So I'll be in this video. The locations were also in the first video as well. So this is the core box set for the year 3 of Marvel United Multiverse. We have Multiverse worth of Spider-Man. Definitely, like I said in the first video, this could be a great box to pick up because you technically get 8 playable characters and 4 villains. 8 locations. You have lots of different locations, stuff for multiple different modes. So without further ado, let's just hop in and take a look at what we have. So we have our first villain is we have Superior Spider-Man. We'll hold up his mini again, even though we did look at him in the previous video. He's purple. So it's called an anti-hero because he can be both a villain and a hero. And of course, this is Doc Ock as Spider-Man. So we have 2 different things to note on the back of the card. We have special setups. This is how you actually have to play him. And the bottom is superhero. So if you're playing with him in super villain, play on a super villain game mode where an active player is playing as him as opposed to being AI controlled. The hero's going to start with 1 of each token. His special set says, place the set of 3 Superior Spider-Man mission cards next to the playing area for him to add tokens to. Place 1 Spider-Bot token in both locations, 2 locations away from the villain's starting zone. So not the one he's at, but the 2 that are 2 spots away. So he has control of like 3 different areas. Then keep threat tokens in a side pool. So we do have his Spider-Bot tokens. He has 6 of them there. So he starts with 2 of them. Alright, then we're going to flip him over and see exactly what he does. So he has 4, 5, or 6 health. His special rules are, when a hero is KO'd, Superior Spider-Man doesn't activate his BAM. Instead, place 1 threat token on his Clear Threat mission card. When Superior Spider-Man rescues a civilian or defeats a thug, place a token on his corresponding mission card. Heroes can remove Spider-Bot tokens from their location by spending a heroic or a fist. Overflow, if a civilian or thug token not be added to the location, add to the corresponding Superior Spider-Man mission card instead. With his BAM effect, deal 2 damage to 1 hero in Superior Spider-Man's location, and 1 damage to 1 hero in each adjacent one. So he's going to hit 3 locations. Rescue 1 civilian, defeat 1 thug in each location with a Spider-Bot. Then if there are no Spider-Bots in Superior Spider-Man's location, add 1 there. Otherwise, add in the next location with no Spider-Bots. So, a villainous plot. Heroes lose, Superior Spider-Man completes 2 of his missions. So he's trying to compete with the heroes to complete missions, which I think is a really fun mechanic. This is supposed to be, he's the villain, but in this villain time, he's basically trying to prove he's better than the old Spider-Man. So yeah, he's not really trying to defeat the heroes, like take them out and to punch them that way. But he is trying to compete with them, which is a interesting idea. So he does have his threat cards as Clear Threat, rescue civilians, and defeat thugs. That's Superior Spider-Man, and then on the other side, you'll say that at the bottom. Otherwise, they look exactly like the other cards the heroes are trying to do. Just he's trying to do it by himself versus the other guys. So then his big mechanic is using his Spider-Bot. So he hits his BAM, he places more Spider-Bots He could potentially get one up in every location, so every time he bams, he could be gaining these really quickly. So that means heroes need to not only be focused on completing their missions before him, they also need to be taking out the spider bots occasionally, just so that they don't, like, they could rescue civilians and heroes beforehand, they just bam won't trigger and won't rescue any stuff. But yeah, that's definitely cool. We got the back of his cards there, so these are his master plan cards. We're gonna go ahead and jump in and look at those. So we're gonna see what we can do there. Alright, we have... Alright, so these go by pretty quick because there's only so much we can do with only so much on there. So he has moving one space, does a bam. One space with hero or civilians. It's kind of like each one's a little bit different. I'm not going to read all of them. He has 3s, pretty typical for most of the characters. He has some 4s, some 5s. And then he does get his special cards. So he has 2 copies. He has do the same exact things, but he has item superior. Add 1 spider bot token to the superior Spider-Man location, and 1 to the opposite one if there are no spider bots in those locations. Then deal 1 damage to each hero in the location with spider bots. So yeah, his spider bots are gonna go crazy and do a bunch of damage, and do stuff all over. So that's definitely fun there. Then we have his threat cards to cover up the location. So he's got 2 copies of Spider-Bot Army. If there's no Spider-Bot tokens location, add 1 here. Otherwise, add to the next clockwise location with no Spider-Bots, if possible. If not possible, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in this location. Yeah, so basically, if you can add Spider-Bots, if not, they're going to damage your hero. So, very interesting on how that all works. So you like just place Spider-Bots left and right. You're going to constantly be fighting these little buggers. He's got 2 copies of Unstable Behavior. As long as this threat is in place, Superior Spider-Man can't be damaged, and heroes can't win the game. Yes, you need to take out both of these cards to be able to even hurt him and damage him. Just more things to fight against. He's got 1 copy of Unparalleled Genius, so when he lands here, each hero in this and adjacent locations must turn face down one of their face-up cards with special effects to the storyline. When this card is cleared, each superhero can turn face up one of their face down cards. This is kind of cool because it shuts down some of them abilities. A lot of the spider characters in here have a starting card that gives them an ability that runs throughout the entire game. So if he lands on this early on, he can shut that ability off for quite a while. So that's actually kind of a neat effect too. Then there's Boundless Ambition. If he lands here, accelerate the next villain by 1 turn. By 1 card. When this threat is cleared, delay the next villain by 1 card. So that's where we'll use the little delay the advance and delay token. So a green for advance, and flip this over, we have orange for delay. So that's really cool. So it makes use of a bunch of different stuff from the game. Alright, that's our Superior Spider-Man. Let's take a look at our other anti-hero. If I can get these cards unstuck. Oh, and he fell off the back. Alright, he's just going to hang out back there. I don't feel like reaching for him. We have Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom's miniature. Kind of have him hang out back there. So he has Super Villain. He has a little bit less, but he has Special Setup. Set aside Cleansing Master Plan card and place it on top of the deck after shuffling it. In Team vs. Team mode, the villain tracker starts on 2. So he's going to have a villain tracker, which is kind of cool. Get this box out. I don't think I grabbed the tracker dice. I did not. So if we flip him over, let me flip him back over here. So he has 4, 6, and 8 health as well. Special rule: whenever a hero card with a special effect is discarded or turned face down, increase Anti-Venom's track by 1. then his BAM effect is each hero in Anti-Venom's location must discard one card with special effect from their hand. If they have none, they take 1 damage and must turn 1 face down, one of their special cards with the effect in the storyline if possible. Yeah, so every time his BAM hits, it's going to hit one way or the other. Either it's going to make you discard or turn one of your cards face down, like we just said with Superior Spider-Man. A lot of your characters in this set have face down effects that last the entire game. So losing those could potentially be very hard. Overflow, one or more civilian or thug tokens can't be added to location. Each hero there must discard 1 card with a special effect. If they have none, they must turn 1 face down. So he's fairly simple for what he does. It's basically you're going to discard a card or turn one of your cards face down. So if you play your special effects, you'll have to just turn 1 face over. And then he has his villainous plot. So he runs more like the old school villains. He keeps track of his heroes lose when the track reaches 6, 7, or 8, depending on the number of players. So we are going to get this little white cube to keep track of it. It's kind of neat because I was like, wonder why it's white, because each one kind of has a color. I think the original one was like, the core set was like a blue, because it's just like the cosmic cube. So this kind of works because it's supposed to be representing Anti-Venom. As well as it might also represent Spot. Nope, just Anti-Venom. So it's a white for a little Anti-Venom token. So it just keeps track over there. So that means you can only lose up to 6 to 8 cards. And then you lose the game. And there's really no way of getting around this. The BAM only hits if he's in your location. And the overflow only hits there. So the way to basically avoid it is try not to be in the same spot as him. Or don't let things overflow. That's kind of what your goal is, to not lose. So let's go ahead and look at his master plan card. So there's his, of course, back of his card. And he does have his starting master plan card. So we'll look at that one first, just because that's the one they want you to start the game with. So cleansing. Let me zoom in a bit here. I'll bring this guy up here to kind of hang out. 1 hero in Anti-Venom's location must discard 1 card with a special effect from their hand if possible. So this is going to be the first card that comes up. This starts right on the top. So if this does hit, it's going to hurt. And now it moves 3 spaces. So there's only 6 spaces on the board, and the heroes always start on the opposite side. So they start 3 spaces away. So if they don't move on the first turn, he is, well, as soon as he plays this card, he's going to hit. Unless the villains go first. I think the villains might go first, so he might actually just land on your spot and force this off the beginning turn, which could be very interesting. Alright, then the rest of his cards. So he has these fun ones that are move clockwise to the next hero, next location with any hero. So again, I said you have to avoid him landing on you. Now if he was getting like 1s, 2s, and 3s like we saw Superior Spider-Man, you might get lucky and dodge him, but he's always going to move to your location. And he's going to BAM. His BAM's going to kick off. Hey, he's in your location. He's going to force you to do that. So there's really no way around him. So you just need to be able to play stuff to take him out as quickly as possible. So we have clockwise. We have some counterclockwise with the single civilians and thugs. We have some... These, like now we have some of these. These move 0 spaces. Now we have some 1s. So not all of his cards are clockwise and counter, but a decent amount are, right? So actually kind of keep you on your toes a bit. Then he has 2 final copies, one with thugs and one with civilians, which is Symbiote Mutation. Bring back into play a random already cleared threat in Anti-Venom's location, if possible, or the next clockwise location without a threat. So that's crazy. He can bring back up to 2 of his previously defeated threats. So we have his threat cards here. We'll see what they do. So we have 2 copies of Camouflage. As long as 1 or more Camouflage threats are in play, Anti-Venom ignores 1 damage on each hero turn. Yeah, getting rid of them is probably a good thing. We have 2 copies of Body Cleansing. As long as this threat is in play, Anti-Venom can't be given tokens of any kind. So, no negation tokens, no stun, like the stun tokens, no target tokens from like Spider-Man Noir. I'm sure other characters obviously have more tokens from other sets, like Iceman products, like freeze tokens, stuff like that. And then we have 2 copies of Power Negation. As long as this threat is in play, heroes can't move during villain turns. This negates Spider Sense abilities, like to move if they land on your spot. Yeah, so very interesting. I don't think he's going to be a very hard villain. I mean, he's going to be challenging, don't get me wrong, which is the whole point. If the villains were too easy, this game would be kind of boring. But I don't think he's going to be abusive. Like, so I think, like, so far, him and Superior Spider-Man, he's going to be the easier of the 2. Alright, so let's hop on to our 3rd villain, which is our full villain, who we have, Spot. So, most people probably had no idea who Spot was until the new Into the Spider-Verse movie, which has Spot in it. There's the back of his cards. Basically, just creates portals. So his special setup is place 1 random Spot token face up in each location. Place a number of crisis tokens on Spot villain dashboard based on the number of heroes. So either 3, 4, or 5. His Spot tokens are... So we got randomized. So we have 6 of them there, and then if we flip them over, we have A, B, C, D, E, and F. So they'll correspond. That way it's not necessarily like Spot 1 is A, B, C, D, E, F. It could be A, F, D, C, B, A. So the fact that they're random means he's not walking in a circle necessarily. He might bounce around to different locations, is the idea of that. Oh, we did not look at his miniature. His miniature is kind of crazy. So they inverted his spots a little bit. So they're kind of like in his body versus just being like drawn on there. But if you notice he has stuff sticking out of him, that is a missile going into his side pocket, like side spot, and it's coming out of his hand. That is really interesting. Like he has that, and then you can kind of see on his base down there, he's stepping out of his spot as well. So that's actually really cool. I think he'd be a fun painted miniature. Alright, what does his actual effects do? Special. If there are any crisis tokens here, when Spot would take 1 damage, remove 1 crisis token instead, and move Spot to the location with the next Spot token in alphabetical order with no heroes. Each damage is resolved separately. So he starts the game off with either 3, 4, or 5 crisis tokens. Then every time he would take damage, you remove one of them crisis tokens, and then he moves somewhere else. So you hit him, he's going to basically avoid the damage, and then he's going to move. So now you have to try and track him down and hit him again. And you have to keep doing that until he runs out of crisis tokens. So each damage resolves separately. So when a hero is KO'd, before activating Spot's BAM, additionally draw a Master Plan card and add face down to the storyline. So if he KOs you, not only does he activate his BAM, he also gets to move on. Again, now A through F, so you're gonna again move around in various locations. His BAM is deal 1 damage to a hero in Spot's location. If there are no heroes there, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in the location on the next spot in alphabetical order with any heroes. So now he's going to punch through and hit someone on another spot. And then Overflow, if 1 or more Thug civilian token can't be added, deal 1 damage to each hero in that location. So he's basically just going to deal damage to you and then avoid damage. Fairly simple. I would almost say he's easier than Anti-Venom. He'd probably be like 1 easy, Anti-Venom 2. I'm going to probably assume Scarlet, Superior Spider-Man is probably ranked 3, and Morlun, who's the boss, is probably the hardest one. But again, this is also a core set, so they probably don't want to make guys too terribly difficult. Alright, so here are his cards. We have, it's also fun here is we right off the bat have someone that have a mixture of thugs and civilians. But it says move to the location with the A spot, bam. And then another one for A, He's going to have some B's, some C's, some D's, some E's, and some F's. So he doesn't get any extra special abilities, but he's going to get moved around. Now, what's crazy about this is if you play him as a supervillain, so you have a person playing, and now you have 3 cards in your hand, instead of just drawing the top card of the deck, you can basically be like, okay, there's a guy in F. I can play my F card versus randomly drawing and getting the A card, and there's no one on the A card. So if a player is playing him, he actually becomes a lot bigger threat. His threat cards are going to be 3 copies of Attack from the Spotted Dimension. As long as this threat is in play, damage dealt to heroes during the villain turns is unpreventable. So he's going to be doing a bunch of damage anyhow, but now you can't even stop it. And then he has 3 copies of, You Can't Escape. If Overflow is triggered in this location and there are no heroes here, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in any location. Yeah, so he's just all about doing damage. Pretty much that's it. Yeah, very simple, very straightforward. Could be a very painful one to deal with, though. But at least you have to deal with too many other mechanics. It's a good one for especially a core game to start off with. Because all you have to do is worry about taking damage and dodging around him. You don't have to worry about too many other little bells and whistles. Alright, so we have one more villain, and then we can jump into some of the other modes. Alright, let's head into our last villain. We have the fun old Spidey Hunter, Morlun himself. Alright, here's his miniature. Standing on, looks like Bile of Flames. Yeah, the Energy Vampire, I guess is what he would be called. Specifically, him and his family try and steal the life of Spider Force people. Or spiders. So he has special setup. Set aside the Life Force Absorption Master Plan card and place it on top of the deck after shuffling it. The Loom World must be the villain's starting location. So this is, one of the things. And Sin Towers must be the location opposite to the villain's starting one. A few characters have specific locations that have to be used, which does limit a little bit of gameplay, but also, again, adds to that thematic element, kind of like the web shooters and some of the threats and stuff. It's always great how they can do that. Like, make a game fun, but keep it thematic to the character. So let's flip him over and see what he does. Let's check out the back of one of his cards quick. There's his full colored image. You can see on the other picture too. So he has special rules. When a hero is KO'd, any henchman in their location gains 1 health. They may go above the starting value. Then the hero is removed from the game, discarding any of their crisis tokens and replaced with a new hero in the hero's starting location on that player's next turn. So this is going to be a very interesting way to play him, because every time you get KO'd, normally you just get KO'd, okay, you wait a turn, you stand back up. There's like lose conditions if you get KO'd too many times, your game will end eventually. Or you lose cards, it takes its toll. Ups the opponent's BAM, stuff like that. But yeah, this one, then you actually change out the hero, so you lose a character, you're somebody else. Now, that's probably one of the reasons why they have 8 playable characters in here. So if you're playing a 4-player game, you have 4 extra characters to switch to. It says, bam, deal 2 damage to 1 hero in Morlun's location. For the Overflow, if 1 or more Thug civilian tokens can't be added to the location, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in that location. If there are none, add the Thug civilian token to the next clockwise location with an empty slot instead. So that'll just slowly start filling up the board until there's no option but to start hurting you. And then the villainous plot. If 4 heroes are removed from the game, yes, you can lose 3 characters and still have a chance to win. So it's kind of neat. Again, there's 8 characters, so you're playing against him. You potentially might end up playing as 7 different ones, because by the time that 8th one would hit, you've lost the game. You might be like, well, then why do we have 8? I think part of that's because you also have Superior Spider-Man, whose ability, his last card says if you KO him, you actually take another player. So they might have it based on for that reason as well. Just because in that way you can use his ability and do that. Now it says in its discuss you may remove Spider-Man from the game. So you'd have to argue whether using his ability counts towards the villainous plot or not. Or if it only counts towards him eliminating them. There's no specific rules on that. If you say no, then you could potentially have played all 8 characters. So, definitely an interesting way to play the game. Plus, I mean, you need to get to play with more characters. And then now, as you buy more and more expansions, you have obviously more and more characters to switch to. Definitely cool. Alright, so he has his starting master plan card, which we read earlier, or told us about earlier, rather. Life Force Absorption. As long as this card is based up on the storyline, when a hero is KO'd, Morlun doesn't activate his BAM. Instead, he gains 2 health and may go above starting value. So rather than activating the BAM, which does 2 damage to one hero, he just instead gains extra health, which is going to make him even harder to take out. Because this should be the first card that gets played, so it'll always be there. There are very few hero cards that allow you to, get rid of or manipulate a villain's card. So there are a few, none in this set, but there are a few in some of the other sets. So you might potentially be able to get rid of that. Alright, then his regular cards is we have 0 with a BAM, 1 with a BAM, and then a 2 and a 2, 1 with thugs and 1 with civilians. And he jumps even numbers up to 4. I like that his things aren't always equal too. That's always nice when they don't do that just the same. Then he's got a 5. Then he has some effect cards. There's 1 with civilians and 1 with thugs, which says Sensing Life Force. Give a crisis token to a hero in Morlun and both adjacent locations. So yeah, he's gonna hang out some crisis token. And then his last 2 are Fierce Hunting with one different type, thugging civilian. Deal damage dealt to heroes with crisis tokens this turn is unpreventable. BAM. Then all heroes with crisis tokens discard them. So you can use the 2 cards to hand out the crisis tokens, and then use the other 2 to make them unpreventable, so they're going to take more damage. So playing against AI, where that's a little bit more random, might not hurt as much. Playing against a human opponent in the supervillain mode, that could be very terrible because they could plan that a little bit better. Alright, then we finally have his threats. So the threats are going to be fun because we're going to see something we haven't seen yet in this game. We have henchmen. Because none of the other characters had any henchmen. So we're going to get the rest of his family. We have Bora, who has BAM, deal 1 damage to 1 hero in each adjacent location. Bora ignores 1 damage in each hero turn. So every time his BAM activates on one of his cards, theirs will activate as well. So taking these guys out versus having to just use the heroic icons. You have to actually damage them. We have Verna, says deal 1 damage to a hero in any location. Bricks, deal 1 damage to each hero in this location. Gamos, who has +1 health per player, +1, deal 2 damage to 1 hero in this location. If there are no heroes here, discard all civilians instead. Genix, give 1 crisis token to 1 hero in this location and each adjacent location. Have each hero with 1 or more crisis tokens takes 1 damage. So he'll work with Morlun's other cards, hanging out more crisis tokens. And then finally we have Karring. Move this threat clockwise to the next location with any heroes and no threat, if possible. Then deal 2 damage to 1 hero in this location. So he's actually going to hunt them down. This could make him even harder because then because he's constantly getting to move around. Then now you have to kind of play catch up to find him. And then this also works with, keep in mind that he has their special rule. If a hero is tailed, everyone gains 1 health. So if he starts tailing guys before you take out the henchmen, they're just going to be that much harder to defeat because they'll have 1 health extra. Or he'll be healing them back up. So you need to be taken out as fast as possible. So even if you expect to lose 1 or 2, hopefully you've taken out a few guys ahead of time. Yes, it's a very interesting villain as well. And again, the only one in this set that has henchmen. So pretty cool. Alright, so the next thing we want to look at is actually the super villain mode and superhero mode. So I'm going to 1 sec here. Grab my book. Drop Morlun's cards back down here. Zoom back out. You don't need those anymore. Alright, so super villain mode. May also be played with 1 player controlling the villain against heroes controlled by other players, on up to 5 players in the game. The villain is bolstered not only by the skill of the player, but also the villain cards and nasty surprises. So a couple of big changes. I'm not going to go through every little rule mode in here. The big thing is so what you do, heroes choose a starting location, but each player shuffles it 12 supervillain cards, draws 4, and then chooses 3 to keeping them hidden, then removes the remaining 1 from the game. Supervillain cards are at disposal of the player, but are not part of their hand. Then after shuffling the master plan deck, the player draws 2 cards from the top of the master plan deck to form their villain hand. So you're going to have 2 master plan cards and 3 super villain cards. It says before drawing their 3 hero cards, the heroes draw a number of random superhero cards equal to the number of players plus 1. Collectively, each choose 1 to keep it hidden. Remove the remaining from the game. So each hero only gets 1 card total, and then the villains get 3. But you get a little bit of options. It's not just randomly drawing. You at least get some choices, which is kind of nice. And then you hang out tokens based on what's back. Now the tokens can be given to any players. They don't have to be equal. So like here for Anti-Venom, you're hanging out 3 tokens. 1 player could get all 3. You could give 1 to 1 of each player. However it works. So basically the winning and losing stays fairly the same. Heroes lose when the villain is supposed to play the last master plan card from their hand, but their hand is empty instead of when the villain uses to draw a card. So because the villain's going to have cards in their hand, they get just an extra turn or 2. And then the villain's turn, at the start of each of their turns, including the start of the game, the villain draws the top card from the master plan deck, then chooses 1 master plan card in their hand and plays it to the story. If the master plan is empty, they win the game. If the villain hasn't indicated starting master plan, they must play it on their first turn. Yeah, so fairly simple there. So super villain cards. Each super villain card has a specific trigger. When they only play 1 per turn, when the effect is resolved, it immediately is removed from the game. Cards can trigger by playing the master plan must be played simultaneously with it. They're resolved together with that master plan, modifying it. And then supers can also play them as well. Yeah, so it's basically, so now you're not getting to draw a new super villain card every single turn. There are 12 cards you get to pick from zoom down like this a little bit. So you get to pick, you draw 4 of them, and you get to pick 3, and you have 3 for the entire game. And it just gives, it's kind of nice because that means like you can play multiple times. You're not going to always just have the same deck of cards. You're not going to go through the entire pile every turn or every round. Let's take a look at what these do. So we have Misdirection. Its trigger is you play a master plan that should add any thugs or civilians. Add these thugs or civilians, splitting them as you wish among your and adjacent locations. So this is kind of interesting because now you can like manipulate how you add them. And this is what makes a supervillain potentially a lot more lethal than a player version versus just the AI controlled one. Because now you can like, oh, I can, this rotation or this effect really does that, or you can overflow stuff. But again, you can only use this once per game, but manipulating at the right time can make a big bonus. We have Saw That Coming, triggered by playing a master plan. Effect, heroes can't use any action tokens until the next villain turn. Covert Operation, play a master plan. Effect, discard up to 2 master plan cards to the bottom of the deck and draw the same number of master plans. Getting to reshuffle your hand. Might also again work if the opponent has some way of like looking at the cards or knowing what's in your hand. Now You See Me. Play a master plan that has a BAM on it. You can apply your BAM effect as if you were in an adjacent location instead of your current one. Which, with all the villains in the game, being able to like BAM in a different spot could potentially really mess up the game, which is really fun. Caught Alone. Play a master plan that moves you to a location with a single hero. Deal 2 damage to that hero in your location. Flexible Plans. Play a master plan. Effect, change your movement to a number of your choice from 0 to 6. Yeah, this could again be very, very bad. Like Spot, he does damage for whatever location if he's in with a hero. So now you can opt to move specifically the exact spot that they're at. Very, very cool. Personal Nemesis. You play a master plan that moves you to a location with more than 1 hero. Deal 1 damage to 1 hero in that location of your choice. Terror in the Streets. Any locations have no thug civilians at the end of a hero's turn. Add any combination of 2 thug civilians to the location with no tokens in them. So basically just fill the streets back up. Cool. Nasty Surprise. All heroes in location with no threats all heroes are in locations with no threats at the end of a hero's turn. Effect, bring back into play 1 cleared threat of your choice in a location with no threat. Now, this one's obviously not going to hit earlier. The other ones you probably might hit early on or multiple times in the game. This might not happen until late in the game. Because there always could just be someone who eliminates 3 threats, or 4 of the threats is all they really have to eliminate, and they could leave the other 2, and then just hoping that they're standing on one of the other ones. But for a lot of these guys, bringing back 1 extra threat could really change the game. Make unpreventable damage, or does extra damage, or like Morlun bringing back one of his minions back. Just might be the different game changer for the villain. We have Sabotage, triggered by playing a master plan. Take all action tokens from heroes, discard 1 of your choice, then redistribute the tokens as you wish between heroes. That's mean. That's fun. Getting Stronger, me too. Any hero who has 4 or more cards in their hand at the end of the turn. Effect, gain 2 health, you may go above your starting value. And then finally, we have more crises. Or crises? I guess it should be how it's pronounced. If you have a master plan card, effect, place 1 crisis token on any location or give 1 crisis token to a hero of your choice. So depending on who you're playing as, this could or could not be very good. And this is why you get an option at the beginning of the game. You draw 3 cards and discard 1. If you're playing as most of these guys, having crisis tokens on a specific character might not make any difference. Like Spot uses crisis tokens, but they're only if they're on him. But both Anti-Venom and Scarlet Spider, or I keep saying Scarlet Spider, Superior Spider-Man, don't use crisis tokens at all. They have no effects that trigger with them. So having this card doesn't help them. But having it with Morlun, who does more damage if characters have crisis tokens, this card would be almost invaluable not to keep. So that's kind of a neat idea there. Alright, then let's look at what the heroes can get. So then we have our superhero cards. We have crowd control. Trigger overflow triggered in your location. Cancel the overflow effect. So it's going to be very helpful. Now again, where the villain gets 3 of these used the entire game, each hero gets 1 of these cards as well. But each one only gets 1. Taking you with me, you are KO'd. Delay the next villain card by 1. Strategic retreat. The villain ends your movement in your location. Move to another location. Get ready. The villain ends your movement in your location. Gain a wild. Eye of the Hurricane. There are no thug civilians in your location. At the end of a villain turn. Effect, draw a card. Shake it off. You're about to take damage during a villain turn. Ignore up to 2 damage. Thwart the plan. The villain ends their movement in your location. Look at the master plan cards in the villain's hand. You may force them to put 1 at the bottom of their deck and draw a new one. And then finally, to the rescue. Another hero is about to take damage during a villain turn. You take the damage instead and gain 1 heroic token. So again, like the villain cards, lots of these could be game changers and lifesavers, but they're not. I don't think they're as potent as the villain ones, but that's also because you're playing a 1 versus many game. So you could definitely just need these to kind of like just give you that extra little bit of edge, which is really fun. Alright, so I'm just going to double check quick, just to also note that these are the exact same supervillain superhero cards found in the X-Men core set. So if you're like, you bought this and you really like these modes, and you're like, oh, I see the X-Men have some too. They are the same one. Now, there were Kickstarter exclusive versions that had more options in that year, that season, or whatever. But otherwise, these are the same ones. Alright, so the last thing we're going to go over, just kind of quickly here, is the Commander solo mode. Some people, you know, although this is a fun game to play with multiple people, it's cool that you can play against somebody, that 5th player. Some people just want to play by themselves. Maybe they don't have anybody around, or they just, you know, don't want to get together. They don't have time to get together. Who knows? Whatever reason. You can play as a single player by... and I kind of went over this in the original first video, but we're just going to do a quick brief thing. First, remove your double wild cards. Then choose a team of 4 supporting heroes. Their game pieces won't be used. Search your deck for cards, special effects. So that's any of the ones with the extra text box on them, as opposed to ones that have just a symbol on them. I'm going to try and grab one here quick. As opposed to just one like that. So you're basically getting to use their cool cards, right? The ones you're really looking for. And then choose 3 of those cards from each deck, building a 12-card supporting deck. Cards marked as starting hand cards cannot be used. So this does limit some of these characters for what they can do, because some of these guys have starting cards. But again, having more characters can definitely add more options. Put the remaining cards back in the box. Here, the top 2 cards in the supporting hand, place them face up to form a display. You can play with equipment if you want, but only take your equipment for your character. Any special opponents associated with both the main supporting characters can be used for the game if they needed, like Spider-Man Noir's tokens. So showing here, then we have our Scarlet Spider. With his equipment, he has his deck, he has his drawing hand, and then we have another deck with our heroes that have 2 cards ready to go. So during your turn, basically what you can do is either draw a card, play a card like normal as if you're doing any other game, Or alternatively, instead of drawing a card, you may play one of your 2 support cards. Then you draw a new card to see what's next. So this does give you some different options whenever you would need them. The one extra rule to this is it says you cannot play that right after a villain card. So normally you go 3 rounds, then a villain plays in 3 rounds. So after the villain plays, you have to play one of your cards. Then the next two turns, you can play one of the support cards. So you can't basically play 3 support cards right in a row. If that deck ever runs out, it just runs out. So it says for other things here, treat the villain as if you're playing a 2-hero game, regardless, starting hell, special rules, all that. And if you ever want to change, you can add extra challenges, do stuff like that. Some don't work with 2 players, or 1 player, obviously. Now, here's the other little extra thing here, is you decide your battle plan budget. The maximum possible amount is 2, but you can play with 1 or even 0 for a bigger challenge. Each battle plan card has different permanent effects that interact with supporting hero cards, and each listed has a cost of 1 or 2. Make your choice of battle cards based on your chosen budget. Place them face up in front of you. Yeah, so you also get a little extra deck of cards here. You can put 1 or 0 to 2 cards out, which gets you extra little bonuses. Yeah, so pretty cool there. And there's other different special rules and some other things like that. Just how they're referring to all these different things. One key note here is this bolded line right here. At the end of each hero turn, you cannot have more than 3 action tokens. Yeah, so basically just keep an eye on that. You can also play Supervillain versus Commander Solus. You can play a 1-on-1 mode, which could definitely be fun as well. So the last thing we do want to look at are our battle plan cards, which come in blue, which give it 2 points. You only get 1 of these, or yellow, which means you could have up to 2. And again, based on difficulty, you might opt to only play with 1. But you get to pick all these out in advance. This is one where you get to look at all of them. And since you're playing by yourself, you don't have other players waiting for you to choose. You can take your time on these. We have Heroic Learning. Each supporting hero card with any extra tokens at the bottom gives you 1 additional heroic token action when you play it in the storyline. So this stays out. So every time you play a card with a heroic action, you gain an additional heroic action. That's only at the bottom of the card. So what that would be very helpful for would be like if I play Spider-Man Noir. I gain an additional token at the bottom. We have Well Armed. So you do the same thing, but with attack. So every time you play a support with attack, you gain 1 extra attack action. This is kind of cool. Helps you out. We have Quick Reactions. Each supporting hero with no movement at the bottom gives you 1 movement action. Gives you just the additional ability to move around. Power Restoration. When you play a supporting hero card, you can forfeit all its actions and special effects to flip up 2 face-down hero cards into this flip face up 2 face-down hero cards in the storyline. Now, this might be very helpful depending on who you're fighting against. There are some villains that will attack your cards and flip them face down. So if you know you're fighting against them, you can plan on that. Or if you have a specific character that maybe does something that flips it face down, this again can help you out with those as well. This might be more of like picky, choosy one to use. Change of plans. At the end of the villain's turn, you may discard the 2 face-up supporting hero cards and they're displayed to the bottom of the supporting hero deck and replace them with top 2 cards. You get the option to swap your cards around a little bit more. Mutual support. Once during each of your turns, you may forfeit 1 heroic token, or action, not token, 1 action to discard 1 crisis token from your hero or your location. Again, very specific to who you're fighting with. These particular villains, only going to be effective against Morlun. The other guys aren't going to put crisis tokens on you or your location. But again, with all the multitude of other villains in this series, this could be very potentially powerful in other versus other villains. Better preparation. When you play a supporting hero card, you can forfeit all its action and special effects to gain 2 wild tokens, which might, depending on what it is, just be better than what you can do. Sometimes having 2 tokens sitting around for a later use might be better than a current exact effect you have, or maybe if the heroes have something that just aren't going to help you at the moment. Then we have the level 2s. These are a little bit more powerful. High mobility. When you play a supporting hero card, you may move your hero to the opposite location. Let the villain talk. Whenever you take damage, you may accelerate the next villain turn by 1 card to avoid discarding the last card in your hand. That's kind of nice. Might save you. Especially if you think about it, you're fighting Morlun. Oh yeah, giving him an extra card sucks, but it's better than having him KO, having to then swap out your character and get him 1 card closer to victory. Saving a friend. When you play a supporting hero card, you can forfeit all its actions and special effects to draw cards until you have 3 in your hand. No time for thugs. When you play a supporting hero card at any time during your turn, you may automatically defeat 1 thug in your location. And finally, we have calling for help. When you play a supporting hero card at any time during your turn, you may automatically rescue 1 civilian. Cool. So that's neat. Some give you extra actions. You pay some of the 2. You can just do free rescues or defeating thugs. Some let you reshuffle, get you a little bit more options on what your cards are. Deal crisis tokens. And again, because it's solo mode, you're taking your time to prep the villain you're going to go against. So this is going to be very important. You can look at what villain. You have the option, I guess, of saying you can look at the villain, look at all the stuff they do, read all their cards, decide what heroes you have in your collection that might work best against them, give you the best advantage. Or you could go in a little bit more blind and just feel like, okay, I'm going to play Spot. I'm going to take these 3 characters, just draw 3 of their cards, kind of seemingly randomly, make your deck up, and just go out and see what happens. And then you can use these cards to supplement that. And again, if you're not, you can again strategize way ahead of time, knowing that they place crisis tokens. Keep the crisis one. Know that they move around a lot. Maybe having the ability to move to get away from them or to chase them might be very helpful. Or just again, shuffle these up, randomly draw 2 cards or take 1 of each, and just see what happens. It's kind of up to you on how you want to play your game, which is, again, the fun part about board games. Alright, so that's what we have for Spider-Geddon and the Marvel United series. Hopefully the Kickstarter will be showing up with the full Season 3 multiverse set and all the fun box sets in there later on, well, probably early next year. So if you guys enjoy that, definitely check out my older videos until that shows up, and then we'll be excited to see all them new heroes bring for our game. See you guys later. Bye.